almost everybody thinks they know what a guitar is. But if it came down to having to produce an accurate definition of guitar, remarkably few people would be able to do it effectively. If you close your eyes and envision violin, everybody can come up with what a violin looks like. They have a scroll peghead. They have a body shape that is quite distinctive of violin. It has 4 strings. And almost everybody's vision of violin is very close, even though over the years there have been literally thousands of makers of violins, and the instruments do differ in sound and feel. The fact is they still look remarkably alike in their general outline. This is simply not true for guitars. There are many different types of guitars. And right now I'm surrounded by a variety of rather different looking guitars, but what they have in common is that they're all guitars. The Spanish-style classical guitar, such as this Ramirez here, made in '69, looks remarkably similar to guitars made in the 1800s by Torres, who was more responsible than any other one maker for standardizing what a classical guitar should look like. And classical and flamenco guitar is a well-recognized category of guitar. But this is still quite different from a flat-top steel string guitar, such as, for example, this 1937 Martin D28, or this 1944 Martin D28. But even with steel string guitars, they come in a variety of sizes and somewhat different body shapes and different type wood. But still, that is another separate category. Whereas this 1939 Premier Cutaway Gibson Super 400 is a distinctly different style instrument with very, very different construction. This has a carved spruce top and carved curly maple back, a very different beast from the flat top. And structurally, quite a different challenge for the builder, but still very much an acoustic guitar. But you can still look at something like the Dobro resonator guitar over there with a metal resonator that produces the tone. And that particular one even has a square neck to be played with a steel bar, Hawaiian style. And as many of you are well aware too, not all guitars have to have 6 strings. You can get a 12-string guitar. There are 7-string guitars. There are 9-string guitars. There are 10-string guitars. But most guitars today have 6 strings and a standard tuning. However, there are dozens of different alternative tunings. So guitar is not strictly described by its size, its shape, or even the mechanism by which it produces sound. The classical and flat-top steel string guitar have bridges glued to the top, and the string tension is torquing the top. The strings are fastened onto the bridge, and it does have a tendency to pull upward on the top, whereas on the arch top, it has a movable bridge tailpiece, and the strings are pushing downward, so it is driving the top with downward pressure rather than upward pull. And the resonator guitar also has downward pressure on the bridge, which drives a metal resonator cone. But not all guitars are acoustic. For example, here we have a hollow body electric guitar made by Epiphone in 1953, but electric hollow body guitars have been around since the mid-1930s. Gibson came out with their Charlie Christian ES-150 model in 1936, but there were actually experiments being done with amplification as early as in the 1920s. But it really was not until after radio and talking movies with electronic microphones and recording systems and amplification systems that electric guitar became practical. So there is an evolution taking place here, that the technology in electronics developed for radio and talking movies, which had a whole lot more money behind them than any guitar maker could have, was what drove the invention and development of electric guitars. But it was not at all long after the invention of a hollow body electric that companies came out with solid body electrics. This particular one here is a 1965 Gibson SG, but there are numerous different makers as well as styles and shapes and types of pickups available on solid body electric guitars. The solid body models came out remarkably shortly after the first hollow body guitars, which were essentially an acoustic archtop with electronics stuck on. In 1958, Gibson came out with their ES-335 semi-hollow guitar, which also is double cutaway, giving more access to the upper registers on the fingerboard. But this guitar has a solid center block and hollow side wings, so it's a semi-hollow guitar. But these guitars have in common that the sound you hear is not produced actually by the instrument top vibrating and the body amplifying the sound as it would on an acoustic instrument. The strings vibrate over a pickup which has a magnetic coil. And when the strings vibrate, that acts as a mini generator, and the generator is giving an electronic signature that mimics the vibration pattern of the string. And that electric current, which is very weak, goes through a cord cable coming out of the guitar into an amplifier where that signal is amplified, enhanced. And that signal then can be used to drive an electric speaker with a cone that will amplify and produce loud volume sound. But the manner in which the guitars actually produce their sound is quite different. In the case of the flat top classical and steel string, you have a vibrating top driven by a torquing up pressure, and that produces sound. The arch top has downward pressure on a carved arch top, which produces sound. The resonator guitar has downward pressure on a resonator, which vibrates and does what a speaker cone does. That being so, what is this? This is a smooth talker model made by Mervyn Davis of Johannesburg, South Africa. It is none of the above. The tailpiece does not put downward pressure on the top. There's no pressure. It runs through the bridge, but there's no downward pressure. There's no upward torque. There's pressure within the bridge itself. This middle section has two Allen wrench screws that push downward on the strings, which press downward on the two bridge saddles, which can drive the bridge itself. There's pressure in the bridge, but it's not transferring any pressure to the top. The guitar is a bolt-together assembly with spruce with the grain running this way. It has the full reach of any electric guitar. You can reach all 22 frets. And it's a bolt-together construction with bolts on the back. You can unscrew the thing. The guitar comes apart into component pieces. It has a Lloyd Baggs electric pickup system, output jack right here. And plugged in, this is one of the finest acoustic electrics I've ever played. But acoustically, it's quite a remarkable guitar in its own way. It has a distinctive sound of its own. But the point still remains. It's actually quite difficult to define what is a guitar because it's not defined strictly by size, by tuning, by number of strings or even by mechanism by which it produces sound. And a great classical player such as Segovia claimed that one of these was not a guitar at all. It might be tuned like a guitar, but he was very firm in stating that this is not a guitar. At any rate, at Gruhn Guitars, we sell all of these types of guitars. We do call them guitars. Our customers call them guitars. The audience out there thinks of them as guitars. There's remarkable diversity in the guitar market. That's one of the things that keeps it interesting. It makes it more fun to be a collector, more fun to be a musician, but it means that one guitar, unless you have a very limited style of playing, is probably not going to do everything for you. Even if you play flat-top steel string guitar, if you play bluegrass and some blues and some ragtime, you're likely to find that the dreadnought-sized guitar, like the D28, may not suit you near as much as a smaller size guitar, and the sound of Martins and Gibsons is still quite different, but they're all fun. So enjoy them.